My name is Vanessa Harper. I am 60 years old. The phone rang just as I was taking gingerbread out of the oven. For a moment, I thought it might be my daughter, Melissa, asking for my pecan pie recipe or reminding me to bring the stockings for her kids. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered, with a smile already in my voice. "Hey, Mom," she said, distracted, like someone talking while scrolling through her phone. "Just wanted to let you know we're doing Christmas at my mother-in-law's this year. You can stay home and relax." "Okay." I stood there holding the phone, still smiling out of habit. "Oh," I said softly. "That sounds nice." She laughed a little, a nervous kind of laugh that didn't belong to the girl I raised. "Yeah, it'll be easier for everyone. You'd just sit in the corner like last year anyway." I don't remember what I said next. Maybe nothing. The words blurred in the air between us until she said she had to run. When the line went dead, the only sound left was the ticking clock above the stove. I looked around the kitchen. The garlands I'd hung that morning still smelled faintly of pine. The plates for Christmas Eve dinner sat stacked on the counter, waiting for people who wouldn't come. On the table, a candle flickered beside the framed photo of Melissa at 8 years old, front tooth missing, wearing the same red sweater I'd knitted her for every school Christmas play. The smile on that child's face looked straight at me, innocent and unguarded. I turned the frame down. Outside, Boulder's winter sky pressed low over the mountains. Heavy and gray, the oven beeped, reminding me the cookies were done. But I couldn't move. The sweetness in the air made me sick. I poured a cup of tea I didn't want and sat at the table. The house silent around me. For years, I'd spent every December trying to make Christmas feel like it used to, baking, decorating, pretending nothing had changed. But that night, the quiet felt different. It wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was the kind that comes before a decision. I reached for my phone again, not to call anyone, but to open the travel app I hadn't touched in years. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing. A notification from Melissa's account filled the screen, a photo of her standing beside a grand dining table. Silver candlesticks gleaming, wine glasses catching the light. Her caption read, "Finally, a classy Christmas." I scrolled through the comments, one after another. So elegant. "You're so lucky to have a real family that knows how to celebrate right." I stopped there. A real family. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "You look beautiful, sweetheart. I miss you." Then I deleted it. The cursor blinked for a long time before I set the phone down. The silence in my house was sharp enough to cut through the smell of cinnamon and dust. By noon, snow had begun to fall outside, slow and heavy. I watched it cover the small reindeer decoration I'd set by the porch steps. When Melissa was little, she used to name them. "That one's Comet," she'd say, tucking a scarf around its neck. I stepped out into the cold and turned on the porch light. The bulb hummed softly, throwing a golden pool across the snow. For years, I'd kept it on whenever she came home for the holidays, a small beacon, just in case she was late, just in case she changed her mind. Now it burned for no one. I went back inside and brewed tea. The steam fogged my glasses as I sat at the table and traced circles on the wood with my fingertip. The words Melissa had said replayed in my head. "You'd just sit in the corner like last year." Paul's voice came to me then, quiet and steady, the way it always did when I needed it. "You warm everyone else. Vanessa, stand near the fire yourself." I let the words settle, deeper this time. The kettle clicked behind me. Another sound of something finished. I looked toward the door, the snow still falling beyond it. And for the first time in years, the quiet didn't ache, it waited. That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock glowed past midnight, the porch light still burning through the snow outside. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, half a cup of tea gone cold beside me. The search bar blinked. Waiting. I typed Christmas tours for seniors. Dozens of results appeared: warm beaches, mountain lodges, river cruises. Then one headline caught my eye: European Christmas markets. Munich, Vienna, Salzburg. Departure in 3 days, 3 days. I laughed softly at the absurdity of it. Me, 60 years old, alone. No travel insurance. No plan. Still, my cursor hovered over the Book Now button. Paul would have said, "You don't need a reason to go, Vanessa, just the courage to leave." I hesitated, fingers trembling. "It's crazy," I whispered to the empty room. From the speaker of my phone, an old voicemail from Melissa played when I scrolled by accident, her voice bright. "Hurried. Love you, Mom. But I'm late. Talk soon." It was 2 months old. That did it. I took a breath and pressed confirm. The screen flashed. Booking successful. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then for the first time in years, I laughed. Not the kind that covers pain, but the kind that shakes the air free. The next morning, I dragged Paul's old suitcase from the closet. The zipper stuck halfway. Same as always. Inside were scarves I'd packed for trips we never took. I folded them neatly, added a few sweaters, and tucked his photograph in the side pocket. The frame was scratched, but his smile hadn't aged. I found an empty leather-bound journal on the shelf and slipped it in beside the clothes. The pages were still crisp, waiting. I thought of texting Melissa something light, something harmless, heading out for a few days, but I didn't. Instead, I turned off the porch light, unplugged the tree, and sat on the suitcase until it latched. The house looked smaller in the dark, as if it understood I was finally leaving it behind for a while. When I lay down, my heart didn't race. It steadied. Something had begun to move again, quietly, but for me this time, at Denver International. I stood by the boarding gate, clutching my passport like a lifeline. The last time I'd been on a plane, Paul was still alive, handling everything: tickets, directions, even snacks. Now it was just me. "Ma'am, you're boarding," the attendant said gently. I smiled, more out of reflex than confidence, and followed the line of travelers down the jet bridge. My seat was by the window, near the wing. A man was already sitting beside it, reading a paperback with a folded boarding pass marking the page. He looked up and smiled. "You've got the better view. I'll try not to block it," I said, easing into my seat. He extended his hand. "David Monroe, Vanessa Harper. First time to Germany." "In a long time," I said. "Yours." He nodded. "I used to take students there every December, taught history at Portland State. Retired last spring." I laughed quietly. "Then you might have to grade me on my German pronunciation later." He smiled. But there was a softness in his eyes. Something familiar. When the flight attendant passed, he lowered his voice. "Traveling for the holidays, sort of," I said. "My daughter had other plans this year." "Mine too," he admitted. "They think I should have stayed home with the dog." We both chuckled. The sound small but sincere. As the plane lifted, I watched the lights of Denver fade beneath the clouds. David closed his book and said, "You'd be surprised how many people fly somewhere just to feel less alone. Maybe not as surprised as you think." We talked through the meal service about Vienna, about our late spouses, about the strangeness of growing older while your children become strangers. He told me he still set 2 plates at the table out of habit. I told him I kept a porch light on for no one. By the time the captain announced our descent into Munich, I realized I hadn't checked my phone once. David leaned toward the window, pointing out the faint lights below. "Looks like the start of something," he said. I looked too. Maybe it is. Vienna looked like a painting I had once seen in a travel magazine, only warmer, louder, and alive. The group from the tour bus scattered into the Christmas market, and I found myself walking beside David again. He handed me a paper cup. Mulled wine. Locals swear it keeps the cold away. I took a sip. Maybe it's working already. The spice hit my throat, soft and sweet. I laughed before I meant to. He smiled. You just laughed at German wine. Brave woman. We wandered past stalls glowing with string lights, wooden toys, and ornaments that shimmered like snowflakes. Vendors called out in German, their voices rolling together like a song. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outsider watching other people live. A choir's rehearsal carried from a nearby church. Children's voices breaking through the noise. David tilted his head toward the sound. St. Stephen's is open. Want to take a look inside? The air was cool and still. I lit 2 candles at the side altar, one for Paul, one for Melissa. The flames flickered close together, almost touching. David stood beside me quietly, hands in his coat pockets. You still talk to him, don't you? Every day, I said. He just doesn't always answer. He nodded. I talked to my wife, too. Mostly about bills she'd hate and shows she'd love. We laughed softly, both aware of the ache underneath. Later, outside the cathedral, snow started again. David lifted his paper cup toward me. To second chances. I raised mine. To finally choosing ourselves. He grinned. That might be the best toast I've heard in years. As we walked back through the square, I noticed the lights reflected in the wet cobblestones, thousands of tiny, trembling suns. Somewhere between one sip and the next, I stopped thinking about who hadn't called. The night didn't feel borrowed anymore. It felt like mine. It happened the morning we reached Salzburg. I didn't even notice the woman taking pictures. She'd been snapping photos of everyone since Munich. Our tour guide called her the blogger from Vermont. After breakfast, David and I stopped by a market stall selling handmade ornaments. Snow was falling lightly, catching in his hair. He held up a carved wooden angel and said, "She looks stubborn. Reminds me of you." I laughed, nudging his shoulder. Then she probably keeps everyone in line. That was the moment the blogger's camera clicked. We didn't think much of it. 2 days later, as the bus pulled into Vienna again, she approached me. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I wrote a short piece about the tour, just local interest for a travel site. There's a picture of you two in it. You looked happy." "Happy," I repeated, surprised by how strange the word felt. "That's rare enough. Go ahead." That night, after dinner, David and I found a quiet table in the hotel lounge. He was reading a guidebook when my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, tags, and notifications filled the screen. I opened the link and saw the photo me and David laughing under falling snow, his hand halfway to mine. The headline read, "She said her daughter told her to stay home, so she found Christmas on her own." The short article talked about rediscovering courage and connection later in life. It mentioned a woman from Colorado who traveled alone for the first time after losing her husband. Friends had already shared it. My neighbor Ellen commented, "That's Vanessa. I knew she'd find her spark again." Another wrote, "This made my morning. Go, girl." I scrolled down until I saw it. Melissa's profile picture. Her comment was simple. "That's my mom. I didn't know." Then below hers, a stranger had replied, "You should have." The air seemed to thin around me. David glanced up. "What is it?" I showed him the screen. He read quietly, then set my phone down. "Sometimes," he said, "the world reminds the people who forget." I exhaled slowly, a warmth spreading through the space where hurt used to live. The photo had traveled farther than I ever meant to go, but maybe it was exactly where it needed to land. The call came the next morning while I was packing. I almost didn't answer, but the number flashing across the screen made my chest tighten. Mom Melissa's voice cracked. "Are you okay? Where are you?" I sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm in Vienna." "Why, you're in Europe," she gasped. Why didn't you tell me I saw that article? Everyone has. I had no idea you were. Her words tangled into panic. You should have called me. I took a slow breath. You told me to stay home. Sweetheart. So I did. I just changed the address. Silence. Then a small, wounded sound, half laugh, half sob. I didn't mean it like that. Maybe not, I said, my tone even. But you did say it. And you meant every word when you wrote, finally, a classy Christmas. I saw it. Melissa. Her breath caught. That was stupid. I just wanted to fit in with Tyler's family. His mother, she's always watching. Always judging. I thought if I kept things perfect, maybe she'd stop comparing us. I could hear her trying not to cry. The old part of me, the mother who fixed. Soothed. Excused rose up instinctively, but I didn't let her speak this time. Melissa, I said quietly, you don't have to make me smaller to make your life look bigger. I raised you to stand tall, not to hide the people who helped you get there. She was quiet for a long time. You're right, she whispered. I messed up. I made you feel like you didn't belong. I don't want you to feel sorry. I said, family isn't about looking good in pictures. It's about showing up when it counts. Her voice was soft now. Mom, I want to fix this. Then start by showing up, I said. When the line went silent, I placed the phone on the nightstand. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. The air in the room felt lighter, as if something that had been pressing down for years had finally lifted. David knocked gently at the door. Ready to head out, I smiled. Yes, I think I finally am. Christmas morning came quietly, like the world was holding its breath. I woke to the faint sound of church bells outside the hotel window. Snow had fallen overnight. Soft and deep. There was a knock at the door. When I opened it, David stood there, bundled in his coat, holding a small box wrapped in gold paper. Merry Christmas, he said. I smiled. You didn't have to get me anything. He handed it to me. It's nothing fancy, just something that reminded me of you. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a snow globe, tiny, delicate, a pair of figures sitting beside a Christmas tree inside. When I shook it, white flakes swirled around them until everything disappeared in a blur of quiet light. It's beautiful, I said softly. I saw it in a shop yesterday, he said. The woman who sold it told me the two figures were meant to represent people who'd found peace in winter. I thought, maybe that fits you. Peace. I repeated. I'm not sure I'd recognize it if it walked up and introduced itself. David chuckled, but there was kindness in his eyes. Maybe you already have. You didn't come here to escape anyone. Vanessa, you came to find yourself again. That takes more courage than most people ever use. I looked down at the snow globe. The two tiny figures side by side. I thought I left loneliness behind. I said, but maybe I just stopped letting it tell me what to do. He nodded. Exactly. We stood there for a while, neither of us speaking. Outside, the bells faded into the sound of people laughing somewhere in the street below. David pulled on his gloves. There's a cafe across the square that supposedly has the best apple strudel in Austria. You game. I set the snow globe on the table, where it caught the morning light. Lead the way. As we stepped outside, snow began to fall again, settling gently on our coats. I didn't feel like someone who'd run away anymore. I felt like someone who had finally decided to arrive. When I walked into my house in Boulder, the air smelled faintly of pine and cinnamon, just as I'd left it. But the silence felt softer now, no longer hollow, only calm. On the kitchen counter sat a small stack of mail, bills, flyers, and on top, a cream-colored envelope with Melissa's handwriting. My hands hesitated before opening it. Inside was a simple card, a photo of her children in matching sweaters, smiling in front of a Christmas tree. Beneath it, she'd written, "We're sorry, Mom. Please visit soon. The kids miss you." I read it twice, then set it beside Paul's picture and the snow globe David had given me. The tiny figures inside sat together under a painted tree, surrounded by white flakes that never stopped falling. I traced a finger along Paul's frame. "Looks like they finally remembered," I whispered. The kettle clicked behind me, the same sound it always made before boiling. I poured a cup of tea and watched steam curl into the quiet room. Nothing needed fixing tonight. The house no longer waited for anyone. It breathed with me, steady and alive, as if it had been waiting for this kind of peace all along. By dusk, the snow outside had turned to slush, and the porch steps were damp beneath my boots. I carried my tea to the doorway and switched on the light above it, the same one I'd kept burning for years, waiting for Melissa's car to pull into the driveway. The bulb flickered once, then steadied, casting a soft circle over the snow. For a moment, I just stood there, watching it glow. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message from Melissa. "Thinking of you. Hope you're warm." I smiled. Typed back, "Dinner next week, your pick. I'll bring the pie." 3 dots blinked. Then her reply, "I'd like that." I set the phone on the table beside Paul's photo and the snow globe. Through the window, I could see the reflection of that little light outside, steady, patient, not waiting anymore. I touched the switch once more, leaving it on. This time it wasn't for anyone to find their way home. It was for me to remind myself I had one, right here. And as the evening settled across Boulder, the house felt full again, not of noise, but of something far better, my own quiet belonging.